welcome to another edition of our online lectures. I'm Ibrahim Omotosho Oyebanji, and I will be your tutor for this session. Today we shall be discussing biology, that is introduction to the study of life. We'll be discussing that under the following headings. One, the definition of biology. We'll also be looking at the characteristics of life, the differences between living and non-living organisms, similarities and differences between plants and animals. Plants and animals are living organisms. However, there are similarities as well as differences. We shall be running you through those similarities and differences. Then we shall be rounding up by discussing cytology, which is the study of cell. So first of all, what is biology? It is a very important concept that is quite diverse. Science has been divided into physics, chemistry, and biology. And biology is an aspect of science that is concerned with the study of life. So biology is derived from two words, bios and logos. The term bios means life, while the term logos means to study. Hence, by combining these two words, we'll be able to understand that biology is a branch of science that is concerned with the study of life. Study of life. So, while we have other aspects of science, physics and chemistry, which deals with the study of matter, whether it is living or it is non-living, biology is primarily concerned with the study of life. So now if we have now understood that biology is concerned with the study of life, then what is life in itself? Because an understanding of what life is will help us to further be able to assimilate the concept of biology. So many literatures have tried to describe life. But for the purpose of our lecture today, I'm going to be explaining life by using the characteristics of life. So for you to be able to understand life, you must understand the characteristics of life. And what are the characteristics of life? The characteristics of life in literatures, we have some literatures we say Mr. Niger D, some we say marriage. But today I'm going to be using Mr. Niger Dark to describe the characteristics of life. So the characteristics of life we have are Mr. Niger Dark. Mr. Niger DAC. So one of the first characteristics of life is what we refer to as the M. Here stands for movement. The M stands for movement. The R stands for respiration. Any of the R's could come first. It could be either respiration or reproduction. We have nutrition. We have irritability. We have growth. G for growth. We have E for excretion. We have R for reproduction. That is ability to bring to life newer offspring of the same species. Then D, we have death. Of course, death is of two forms. Death can either exist as necrosis or death exists as apoptosis. So there is a kind of death that is beneficial and there is a kind of death that is non-beneficial. The beneficial type of death is what we refer to as apoptosis, which we refer to as a programmed cell death. While the non-beneficial death is what we describe as necrosis. So you can have the beneficial death, which is referred to as apoptosis, or the non-beneficial death, which is referred to as necrosis. Then the letter A here stands for adaptation. If you do not adapt, then there's a likely tendency that such an organism can die. So adaptation, in order for organisms to continually survive, in order for organisms to continually remain in their habitat, they need to be able to adapt. Then finally we have competition. Since living organisms reside in an environment with other organisms and the resources are available in limited amounts, so living organisms need to compete. For example, we compete for food. There are times where we compete for money, because all those resources are scarce. They are not enough to go around. And because resources are not enough to go around, living organisms are expected to compete. So the ability of living organisms to compete in order to be able to achieve, or in order to be able to get the required resources within their environment, is what we refer to as competition. So back to the characteristic of life. When you are asked, you use Mr. Niger Da. Number one, we have M for movement, respiration, nutrition, irritability, growth, excretion, reproduction, death, adaptation, and of course competition. Now, to describe each of these characteristics, all living organisms are able to move, regardless of whether they are unicellular or they are multicellular. However, it is very essential for us to know that the degree of movement in this living organism is quite different. It differs from one type of living organism to another type of living organism. For example, when we look at amoeba, the movement of amoeba is via the aid of pseudopodia. The amoeba has what we refer to as a pseudopodia. So these are a set of foot-like structure. The word pseudopodia is a combination of two words. Pseudo, which means fox, and pod, the word pod, means foot. So the term pseudopodia means that the amoeba possesses a false kind of foot. So this foot is what the amoeba uses to move, and you realize that the movement is to a varying degree. Unlike humans, where we are able to move because of what? Because of the possession of our limbs, because of the possession of our legs. Another thing about movement, like I said, movement is to varying degrees. Some organisms move faster than the other. Some organisms need a more sufficient level, a more sufficient structure for movement. For example, the amoeba, which habitat is aquatic. The amoeba lives in an aquatic environment. And because the amoeba lives in an aquatic environment, its transport system or its locomotive system does not need to be that complex, because a part of the support movement of the amoeba has been done by the aquatic environment, which is what? Water. So objects that live in water do not require such a complex structure for movement. Look at the fish. All the fish possesses is a streamlined body, which allows it to be able to move in line with the current. So that is the movement. So movements in living organisms, you must know, vary to greater degrees, to vary from level to level depending on the type of organism. Then number two, the movement in living organism is aided by the habitat. Aquatic organisms are able to move faster, better, without needing a much more complex structure as compared to terrestrial organisms. Then looking at respiration, how do we describe respiration? Respiration can be defined as the ability of living organism to be able to generate energy by the intake of oxygen. That is, respiration is the ability of living organism to utilize oxygen for the breakdown of molecules in order to be able to generate energy. I repeat, respiration is the ability of living organism to take in oxygen or to take in air in order to be able to break down complex molecules to generate energy. And an equation to represent the respiration in living organisms can be seen as follows. We can see this. This is a complex molecule. This is carbohydrates. This is glucose, a carbohydrate. In the presence of oxygen, we are going to see that this glucose, which is a complex molecule, will be broken down into simpler substance. This is where we are going to have CO2 and water. This is carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, and of course 6 molecules of water. The primary goal of respiration, this is respiration. The primary goal of respiration is to generate energy, which is ATP. That is, ATP represents adenosine triphosphate. So the primary goal of respiration is to generate adenosine triphosphate. I repeat, respiration is the ability of living organisms to break down complex molecules, usually macromolecules, into simpler molecules with the ultimate generation of ATP. Please take note, for the purpose of literature, that respiration is an example of a catabolic process. Is an example of a catabolic process. So the reverse of respiration is photosynthesis. While photosynthesis is an anabolic process, so when you reverse, the reverse of this process is photosynthesis, and this occurs in the presence of your sunlight and chlorophyll. So I will discuss that respiration. This is the equation for respiration. Glucose is broken down in the presence of oxygen via a catabolic process to generate carbon dioxide, water, and adenosine triphosphate. Then respiration can also be divided into two. We can have what we refer to as the aerobic respiration, and we can have the anaerobic respiration. When we talk about aerobic respiration, it's a respiration that occurs in the presence of adequate supply of oxygen. However, anaerobic respiration is a type of respiration that occurs in the presence of limited supply of oxygen. And of course, the end product of these two processes will differ. In aerobic respiration, we are going to be having more energy being produced because oxygen is involved. However, in the case of anaerobic respiration, we'll be having limited amount of energy being produced. By the time we discuss respiration as a topic, we shall be looking at the concept of glycolysis and Krebs cycle. Majorly, Krebs cycles generate the larger chunk of energy with the aid of a material known as mitochondria. That is being discussed. I discussed movement, I discussed respiration as the process of breaking down complex molecules in the presence of oxygen to generate CO2 and water. Then the next concept is nutrition. We understand that the difference between living organism and non-living organism is the ability to feed. Living organisms will always at some point require substance. For example, in the case of respiration, we need glucose in order to be able to generate ATP. What is going to be the process that will be utilized in the generation of this glucose? That process that is needed in the formation of this glucose is going to be what? Nutrition. And when we talk about nutrition, how do we describe nutrition? Nutrition is the ability of living organisms. It is the ability of living organisms to acquire their food in order to be able to generate energy. So the process by which living organisms are able to acquire their food, which we refer to as feeding, is what we refer to as nutrition. Now the question comes then, what are the ways by which living organisms are able to acquire their food? Living organisms are able to acquire their food through two major ways. It's either they are able to produce their food by themselves, or they get their food from other sources. I repeat, living organisms are either able to manufacture their food by themselves. That is auto manufacture of food by themselves. We call it auto. Good. So we were talking about either you get your food by yourself, that is autotrophic, or that is self-feeding. The term autotrophy comes from the combination of two words, auto and trophism. The term trophism means to feed, while the term auto means self. So we have autotrophy, which means self-feeding. So living organisms can either be able to manufacture their food in a process known as autotrophism, or they depend on other organisms for their food in a process known as heterotrophism, or we refer to as holozoism. Holozoism. So holozoism, or heterotrophic type of nutrition, is more peculiar to animals. While autotrophic mode of feeding is peculiar to two categories of process. It can either exist as photosynthesis, because these organisms need to manufacture their food. And because these organisms need to manufacture their food, they need a primary source for generation of their food. The primary source for the generation of their food can either be sunlight, as we see in photosynthesis, or the primary source for the generation of their food can be from chemicals, as we will see in chemosynthesis. So living organisms can either use sunlight as a catalyst, as a requirement for the manufacture of their food, or they use chemicals, as in the case photosynthesis is common to green plants because they need chlorophyll, while chemosynthesis is peculiar to fungi and some bacteria. So nutrition is process by which living organisms can manufacture their food using various methods. And it's either they are able to manufacture their food themselves, or they require or they depend on other organisms for their food. When they depend on other organisms, it is referred to as heterotrophism, while when they can manufacture their food by themselves, it is referred to as autotrophism. Having discussed nutrition, then we'll move on to irritability. Irritability is the ability of living organisms to be irritable. In other words, it is the ability of living organisms to respond to stimuli. Stimuli is the plural for stimulus. So the ability of living organisms to be able to respond to stimuli is called irritability. So when I pinch myself and I have to withdraw my hand, or when I want to carry a pot of hot water and immediately my hand withdraws, it means that my hand is responding to stimulus. So the ability of living organisms to respond to stimuli is referred to as irritability. This stimulus, or stimulus for singular, stimuli for plural, this stimulus can either be internal or it is external. We could have them in form of different type of trophic movement. Irritability could be, you could have chemotropism, you could have tactotropism, you could have taxism, depending on the kind of stimulus that is being responded to. Then we move on to growth. All living organisms are able to grow. They are able to become bigger than they actually are because of an increase in cell size. So one of the critical portion or process that is involved in cellular growth is an increase in cell size. That is the process of mitosis and meiosis. So we have growth occurring in different phases, involving the process of cell division, then involving the process of cellular increase. So living organisms are able to increase in size because of growth. So growth is a characteristic of living organisms. Then excretion. Excretion is the ability of living organisms to release poisonous waste products of metabolism. So the ability of living organisms to release poisonous waste products of metabolism is what we refer to as excretion. However, many candidates make a mistake of calling excretion, of mixing excretion with ejection. Excretion is quite different from egestion. While excretion is the removal of poisonous waste products. Poisonous waste products. Egestion is primarily concerned with the removal of undigested waste. Egestion involves the removal of undigested waste, while excretion involves the removal of poisonous waste products of metabolism. So when you defecate, you are ingesting, you are not excreting. But when you pass out urine, which consists of some poisonous waste products which if they accumulate can be dangerous to the body, you are said to have undergone excretion. Then the next characteristic is reproduction. Reproduction is the ability of living organisms to give rise to newer offspring of the same species. The ability of living organisms to give rise to newer viable offspring. That word is critical. The word viability. The ability of living organisms to give rise to newer viable offspring of the same species is what we refer to as reproduction. Of course, there can be a combination, there can be a sex, there can be an interaction between two organisms of different species. But in many cases, those organisms that are produced are not usually viable. Let's take a critical example of a reproduction or a mating between a lion and a tiger. Assume that a lion and a tiger mate. Today, we have a lion plus a tiger. Lion and tiger belong to different species, and the offspring that is produced is a liger, which is formed from the combination of a lion and a tiger. When a lion and a tiger combine to form a liger, we usually observe that a liger is an organism that is healthy, however, they are usually sterile, which means that ligers are unable to give rise to newer viable offspring. So reproduction is complete as a process when an organism is able to give rise to newer organisms that are fertile and are also able to give rise to continue to perpetuate the generation. Then the next characteristic is death. Of course, like I stated, death can either exist as apoptosis or it exists as necrosis. It's either we have a programmed cell death. For example, while an organism were still undergoing the embryonic phase of development, you realize that the organism, a baby, appeared to have webbed fingers. They were webbed, looking like that of a dog. But because of a programmable cell death known as apoptosis, the organisms, all the webbed fingers, eventually disappeared before the ninth month of gestation, before the baby was completely delivered. So we should understand that death can be beneficial, as in the case of apoptosis, or it can be damaging, as in the case of necrosis. Then the next is adaptation. Adaptation is the ability of living organisms to respond to changes in their environment. Ability of living organisms to respond to changes in their environment is what we refer to as adaptation. And those features that living organisms possess that enables them to be able to respond to the changes that is occurring in their environment, we call those features, we call them adaptive features. Those features are called adaptive features. So examples of adaptive features, we could be talking about a bird. What is the adaptive feature of a bird? A bird has wings. They have wings. Birds have wings to fly. So this enables them to mate. They also have streamlined body structure that enhance their buoyancy. Look at adaptation to aquatic environment. An adaptation to aquatic environment, as you can see in the case of fish, you can see gills. So your fish are gills. It also has a streamlined body structure. And of course, it possesses fins. So these are adaptive structure of a fish in an aquatic environment. So the adaptive feature that an organism will possess is dependent on the habitat of such an organism. Finally, we will be looking at competition. That is from the word compete, the ability of living organisms to outlive others. in order for them to be able to survive. In Darwin's theory, we have Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest. And he made us to understand that for organisms to continually retain or sustain their generation, they need to possess features that are adaptive in the process of competition. So competition is the ability of living organisms to evolve, to possess features that enable them to continually or to outlive their contemporaries, depending on the environment. So, having explained to us today, we have discussed the characteristic of life: movement, respiration, nutrition, irritability, growth, excretion, reproduction, death, adaptation, and competition. In our next lecture, we shall be discussing on the cytology of living organism. Thank you very much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed the lecture. Please ensure that you like, subscribe, and pass your comment. Cheers. I'm glad to be your tutor for this session. Have an amazing week ahead.